First up, my delicious pan-fried pork chops with sweet and sour peppers.
Whether it's in the restaurant or even at home, one of my golden rules for producing fantastic food is learning to cook with confidence. This recipe is so straightforward, but tastes absolutely amazing. Pan on. Get that nice and hot. You think of the sort of density of a pork chop, how it needs a little bit of help. Sweet and sour peppers go brilliantly well.
First, slice the peppers.
That's the flat side of the pepper, so stand it up. Trying to slice a pepper on the side is a nightmare. There's the centre. Start off. It's almost like sort of peeling an orange. Go all the way around and down. And look, that's what you want. Now, place the pepper down. 3-finger rule. 1 finger in front, 2 behind. Pinky holding it down, thumb holding it nice and flat. The flatter the vegetables, the more confident you are when you slice. So, don't worry about the speed. Just let the knife do the work and take your time. Speed comes. The most important thing is to get your technique right. Red onion. Now, sweet and sour peppers. Olive oil in.
I'm going to saute them, which is just the chef's term for shallow frying on a high heat for maximum taste.
Some salt and pepper.
Add a tablespoon of sugar.
Sugar helps to break down the peppers quicker, but caramelises the onions. Frying them in a frying pan, perfect. It's one of the sort of basic essential tools of any kitchen because it's so multi-purpose. Great for sautéing, tossing, great for cooking fish and meat. Push away and pull back. Push away and pull back. That hissing is something you need to hear constantly because the minute that's gone, your peppers and your onions start to boil and you really want them to saute. You now start to see it glistening in a way that it's starting to caramelise. Sugar's working beautifully. That's ready for the red wine vinegar. In. Smells incredible. It helps to stain the peppers as well. Look at the glaze now. You can see the sugar. It's worked its magic. Turn down the gas and add a couple of tablespoons of fresh extra virgin olive oil. Let them stew for 2 to 3 minutes. Now, I want to make the peppers nice and light and sort of sweet, aromatic. Just roll the basil, almost like a big cigar. Slice. Basil in, and then literally cook it out for 30 seconds. I want them off. Beautiful. OK, pan back on. And now for the pork chops. I want to make sure they don't curl up in the pan. If they start curling up in the pan, they're going to cook unevenly.
A few simple cuts through the rind means the chop stays flat and cooks evenly.
Point the knife down, flip through. Just season them beautifully. Nice large shards of pepper. Punch that through lightly. Guaranteed that seasoning is going to stay there. Hot pan, a touch of garlic and a touch of thyme. And the garlic, take a couple of cloves. Don't peel it, don't chop it, just knife on. Crush it. Olive oil in. Just starting to smoke. Top of the chop, in. And lay away from me. Nice. Keep that heat in the pan. Put the garlic in there early. A nice fragrant bunch of thyme. See how the pork has stayed nice and flat. Turn that over. Look at that. Beautiful. I want a little bit of thyme underneath there. Start squeezing that garlic out. I want the flavour coming out. Butter in. Thin slices of butter. Tilt the pan and baste. So I'm sort of speeding up the cooking process. At the same time, I'm keeping the pork chop really nice and moist. And now look at the colour of that butter. It's almost like sort of a nut brown. Check the colour on the other side. Beautiful. When they're that thick, 3.5 to 4 minutes each side. 30 seconds from now, they're going to be medium, so I'm going to take them out and let them rest.
The secret to perfectly moist pork chops is letting them rest almost as long as they're cooked in the pan.
A nice spoon of these peppers. The basil smells incredible. Keep that garlic on there. Be generous with that vinaigrette from the peppers because it really is incredible. Do two things simple like that, pork and peppers, and your confidence is going to shoot through the roof. A stunning pork chop with sweet and sour peppers.
My next recipe turns what used to be a decidedly unfashionable cut of meat into the star of the dish, fit to grace any table. Slow roasted pork belly with fennel.
Slow roasting works better on fattier, tougher and unfashionable cuts. Whether it's a cheek or even a neck or this amazing pork belly, it's a fantastic way to transform cheap cuts into amazing melting perfection. Take a very sharp knife, bring the pork belly towards you so you're over it and you've got all that pressure and weight. Using the tip of the knife, I'm just sort of nicking it and go across the pork belly. Long strokes with the knife. Take your time. Turn it 180. This time, what we're doing is just sort of cutting those nice little sort of diamonds. But as that starts roasting on top, it starts getting nice and crispy. Take little handfuls of salt and just sort of rub it in. Bend it over and in all those cracks. Really helps to get a nice, crisp crackling on top. Roasting tray, get it really nice and hot. Take a whole bowl of fennel.
To intensify flavour and to keep the meat succulent, I'm braising my pork belly with strong, vibrant spices and vegetables. Crush and peel 3 whole cloves of garlic and add to the fennel.
Olive oil in. Fennel in. I like the nice, strong aniseed flavour that goes with that nice, rich, dense pork. Fennel seeds. Delicious. Star anise in. And just a couple of cardamom seeds. And wow, they're like little bangers, like little firecrackers. Incredible. Lovely. Fresh bay leaves. Get your pork skin side down. Just sear the top of that fat. That locks in all that amazing flavour. Then I'm going to flip it over and get it nice and crispy. And then I want fennel seeds embedded in those little cracks. Now, some white wine. The minute that white wine hits that pan, you can just smell that light fragrance from the fennel.
Allow the wine to bubble away and reduce until the alcohol has burnt off.
Time to add the stock. Now, the stock goes in just underneath the skin, so it roasts on top. All that meat under there has got to be submerged, because what happens in the oven, the top goes crispy as anything, and the stock reduces and braises at the same time. Really important that you bring that back up to the boil before it goes in the oven, otherwise it will never boil, never get up to temperature. It smells incredible.
Slow roast the pork belly at 180 degrees for 2.5 hours.
Look at that. You've got that nice, crispy skin on top. You can see how much of the stock has evaporated. Put that onto the board. It looks stunning.
To make a delicious rustic sauce with the flavour-packed contents of the roasting tray, first get rid of the excess fat.
Take a couple of slices of bread. It's like a perfect sponge because you just lay that on top and drag it almost like a net. And it just absorbs all that fat. If you want the perfect fried bread, trust me, stick that in a frying pan. A nice teaspoon of mustard, whisk that in.
And then simply simmer for a few minutes before pouring into a serving jug.
With your pork belly, always use a nice serrated edged knife. You can hear that. Wow. That is amazing. Incredibly tender. That belly of pork is gonna almost melt in your mouth. You've got that sweet meat under that crispy belly of pork. What an amazing way to cook a very cheap cut of meat.
Smoky pork sliders with barbecue sauce.
Everyone loves a burger. They're a true fast food original. And that's the exciting thing about street food. You can take an old classic like that and reinvent it into something really exciting. When you think of a burger, what you need is a great sauce. And a light, smoky barbecue goes hand in glove with a great burger.
Start by finely chopping 1 onion and 3 cloves of garlic.
Nice hot pan, tablespoon of olive oil, onions and garlic into the pan. Nice seasoning, salt and pepper. Now, the secret of a good barbecue sauce is that really important caramelization to begin with. A nice tablespoon of brown sugar. It darkens the onions, but it really starts to sort of give that nice syrupy body to the sauce. We'll put a little bit of heat in there now. A nice teaspoon of smoked paprika. That's the important part of working with spices. You've got to cook them out and almost sort of burn off that rawness, especially with the smoked paprika. That's exactly where I want it to go. Onions and garlic, beautifully caramelized. Cider vinegar in. Reduce that down.
Now, I've got a fantastic smoky base. To complete the sauce, I'm making my life really easy and adding pre-made Worcester sauce and tomato ketchup.
Cook that out for 2 to 3 minutes. Now, depending on how thick you like the barbecue sauce, that determines how long you cook it out for. I don't want it to be too runny, but I don't want it to be too thick either. That's the consistency we're looking for. Lovely. Turn down the gas. Touch of seasoning. Now, take that out. It's the kind of sauce that I like to have sort of bottled up in the fridge. It's great for sandwiches, but goes brilliantly well with these sliders. Homemade, smoky barbecue sauce. Give the pan a little wipe. Now, start the mix for the sliders.
To give my mix a really interesting flavour and texture, I'm going to be using unsmoked back bacon.
I travel all over the world, and I spend a lot of time in the States. They know how to make a great slider. Pork sliders, beef sliders, chicken sliders. And it's almost like a way of having a burger, but on a much smaller, miniature level. Little teaspoon of olive oil. I want that bacon to get really nice and crispy. Bacon in. This just gives the really nice sort of chunky, delicious mix. I want texture, and pork is perfect for a slider. And chop a shallot. Shallots are a lot sweeter than your normal white onion. Fine, 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 and in. Now that bacon's getting really nice and crispy, I want a bit of heat in there. Put a little teaspoon of smoked paprika in there. And when you see these sliders in the States, for one portion there's like 4 or 5 of them, little mini one-biters. Incredible. Now, take your pork, just open it up, and give that a really nice seasoning. So important. You can't season a slider after you've cooked it. It's impossible. So, season it nicely. Bacon. Now that's nice and crispy. Just take a little touch kitchen roll and just drain that off there. Nice. Pat that nice and dry. I want all that nice sort of crispiness in there. Beautiful. Mix all that in. Take a nice ball and sort of roll it size of a golf ball. Get it nice and round first, and then 3 fingers. Just pat that down. Don't flatten them too thin, otherwise they overcook and they go sort of dry.
Because sliders are bite-sized burgers designed to go in small buns, you don't want to make them too big.
Good. Get the pan nice and hot. A tablespoon of olive oil. When a slider is literally that thick, about 1 inch thick, you're going to take 2.5 to 3 minutes each side. In. Turn them over. Lovely. Once you've turned them, tilt the pan and just spoon all that juice back into them. Even my mouth's watering now. Very easy to dry the pork out, so just feeling it now with your fingers is nice and firm. There's a little touch of springiness in the center. I'm happy with those.
Add your cheese now so it gets nicely melted. I'm using wedges of smoked cheddar.
And it adds that nice sort of soury, smoky creaminess to the slider.
Finally, shred a baby gem lettuce.
And just take those buns, make sure they're sliced nice and evenly. Take your lettuce, be quite generous with the lettuce. Just a nice thin slice of tomato. Take your burgers. You can see that cheese. Beautifully melted. Your barbecue sauce. Place the top on. And that is my version of a slider that is small, dynamic, but packed full of flavour. I'll take that over a hamburger any day.
Amazing sticky pork ribs.
One of the secrets to great cooking is patience. Leaving dishes to marinate for 1 or 2 days helps to develop the flavour in your food, and the end result is so much more delicious. It's a method I use in the restaurants all the time. First off, get your roasting tray. Put the tray on the gas. Pork ribs, 60% meat and 35–40% fat. Give them a really good season. Salt and pepper. The nice thing about this cut, they stay incredibly moist when they're on the bone. And the longer you cook them, the more delicious they become. Just push all that seasoning in to the pork. Olive oil in. Make sure that tray's nice and hot. And I really want that nice sort of caramelisation taking place on the pork. And that's the nice thing about starting it on top of the stove. Use your roasting tray, get them coloured, and then in the oven. Putting the ribs straight in the oven, you don't get the colour. It looks sort of boiled as opposed to a nice caramelised rib. Ginger. You can't beat fresh ginger with sticky pork ribs. Place it down nice and firmly and slice. The thinner you slice the ginger, the more fragrant the ribs. Garlic. And it's really important, before you add anything to those ribs, make sure you've got the colour on the ribs first. Don't rush it. Turn them over. That's what I want. That nice, crispy colour. As they sort of braise in the oven, all that colour just turns into the most amazing flavour.
Braising is just a chef's term for cooking something slowly in liquid.
Right, ginger and garlic in. Spread it around. I want all those ribs to sort of roast with the ginger and the garlic. Chili flakes. Chili flakes in. Next, Szechuan pepper. Citrusy, vibrant peppercorns. Incredible. In. Next, star anise. That gives it a really nice sort of aniseedy flavour, almost like you're roasting the ribs in fennel. In. Now we've got the heat, got the spice. I want to sweeten things up a little bit. Some fresh honey. Honey glazes the pork beautifully. It counteracts against all that spice in there. But look what's happening. The colour on the ribs is extraordinary. It's like a really nice, chilly, sweet caramel. Now, soy sauce brings that little bit of sort of saltiness to it. Really generous with the soy sauce. Japanese vinegar. 2 tablespoons of vinegar in. Rice wine. It gives it that nice sort of tartness to the ribs.
If you can't find rice wine, a dry sherry is a great substitute.
300 ml. That takes out the heat of that Szechuan pepper, those dry chili flakes. Make sure they're all laid down like a nice, tight box of matches. Bring that up to the boil.
Cooking is all about learning to develop your own likes and dislikes, so always keep tasting to make sure you're happy with a combination of flavours.
It's lacking a little touch of vinegar. I want that sharpness. Now think what's going on. The tartness, the heat, the caramel, the colour on the ribs is amazing. I want a bit of a sort of oniony flavour. We'll put some spring onions in. Whilst these ribs are in the oven, the spring onions will sort of puree. They'll give a sharpness to the final taste of that pork. In with my spring onions. In with my stock, 400 ml of stock. This is just a simple chicken stock. The stock just sits underneath the ribs. It absorbs into the rib, and the top of the rib glazes underneath the rib. That gets crispy and rich, and that's what makes the ribs nice and moist. Really important. Into the oven.
Cook at 180 for 30 minutes. Then turn the ribs over and cook for a further 30 minutes.
Now, wow, they smell incredible. Each side has got that really nice, crispy, roasted edge. It becomes sticky and chewy and sweet, sour. The fat's disappeared and the pork just melts in your mouth. I want to take them to the next level. Gas back on. Now, shake the tray. And this is the sort of the way that we finish them in the restaurant. And for every minute they glaze in that tray, they just get to taste better and better. Now look at them. I'm so happy with those.
Ribs done. Absolutely delicious now. But if you want, you can put them in the fridge and the flavour will keep developing. Then just reheat them when you want to serve.
So, each rib has a nice slice of ginger on there. Wow, look at that. Delicious sticky ribs with an amazing marinade.